Okay, so your attention please. This is my former student, dear friend, former Smith student, Prahlad. Many of you take courses from John Mastamy Prabhu. This is John Mastamy's son. Also has a lot of points to mention here. Former student. He's a very distinguished former student in that he developed, between he and his friends, he developed a study method that he got the top in the whole of India, IGCSE, Cambridge schools all over India. He got the top in India in physics, right? Yeah. And his friend got the top in math by using the same study regimen. And so we thought it would be nice, since exams are coming up, you have your trials coming up and all the other exams coming up very soon. We thought it would be good if he could share with you his ideas of how to study and what got in this. He also is a very successful, businessman, very successful
music teacher.
Music teacher, and he learned from our own Prabhu, Mridanga, who's very expert. And then, now he teaches that all over the world online, like that, and he still takes some classes with Mridanga.
Yeah, still learning.
Yeah,
still
so
learning.
keep learning. All right, so I'll let you carry on with that.
Okay, very well, everyone. So I printed out these sheets here. Do you all have pens that you could write with? Okay, if you don't, it's okay. You could write down notes later, but I would encourage you to write some notes at some point. Just thoughts you have or your own ideas afterwards. So if you have a pen now, you could write it down now. Otherwise, later is fine too. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about when preparing for exams or studying in general is...
You have to really listen, everybody. Huh?
Yeah, there's some...
Extra windows. You have one between two. Any password someone. One between two at least. Okay, one between two.
Okay, should I? Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is motivation and what motivated me originally when I started studying for my exams. So I had a few friends in school. One of them, his name was Ikigai. We called him Spanish Ikigai. And he was originally in Marj Gurukul, so he never did his high school. And then he decided after leaving there, he was I think 16, he wanted to get a high school education. I think he only finished 7th grade or 8th grade. And so he didn't want to sit in with a bunch of kids that were much younger than him. He felt kind of embarrassed. So he wanted to finish his exams really quickly. So what he did is he studied, I think he was taking at the time 6 IGCSE courses or maybe 7. And he wanted to finish it quickly. So he studied for 2 months. 7, I think it was 6 or 7 subjects. What is the minimum to get your IGCSE? 5. Okay, it might have been 5 or 6, something like that. It was the minimum. He studied for 2 months and then did his exams. So he did his 9th and 10th grade in 2 months.
10 and 11.
Oh, now you call it 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Back then it was 9 and 10. Okay, we changed it. So he studied for 2 months and got straight A's. He got A's and everything. And he did it with Gopinath too. So both of them. Gopinath was another one of my role models. So they were the first ones who really inspired me. And the cool thing about it is that what I found inspirational is that not only was Bai good at school, but he was also the best at soccer in school. He was the best at chess. He was the best at jiu-jitsu. And we had strongman competitions back then. He used to win. So he was a role model for me being good at school is one thing, but then also being able to be good at sports and music and academics and all kinds of other things was something that was inspiring for me. Because I didn't want to just like be good at one thing and like, you know, be the quote unquote nerd who studies a lot but is not good at anything else. So that's something that I wrote down here, balanced recreation, and this is something that I found helpful in a lot of the other students that did really well. There was Gopinath, there was Abhay, there was Lakshmipati. He used to be a teacher here for a while.
Yes.
And they all did really well in their exams. They all finished much faster than usual. I'm doing some of the courses in only a couple months and getting really good grades. And all of them had like a balance of things. They would do sports, they would do music, they would do chess or jiu-jitsu, martial arts, a lot of different things. And I found it for myself too. Doing a lot of different things kind of helped me keep a balance, and I think it helped me do better in my exams. So sometimes people feel like, oh, I want to do well in school, so that's all I'm going to do all day is just study all day. But I found that for myself, that was not the best thing. So for one thing, you want to find something that motivates you. Maybe it's a role model, maybe it's someone who did really well and you want to follow their example, and you can ask them what they did. And so that's what I did, is I asked Gopinath, I was like, okay, what did you guys do? And he tutored me for a while. Every day he would come to my house and then he would share some of his study skills that he actually learned from the former principal, Lalita Mataji. So she taught him how to study for his exams. So basically, studying and preparing for your exams, we had a 3-step method. So the first step is to just finish your coursework. That's obvious. Go through the book, go through the syllabus. The second step is to make notes based on the syllabus I wrote. And the third step is doing exam papers. So I'm going to go into more detail in all of those. So the first thing with finishing the coursework, when I was doing my A-levels, I didn't have the textbook for accounting until like really late into the course. And so I signed up for my A-level exam, and like a couple months before, I hadn't even started the A-level. So I ended up doing the what was it? Yeah, the 1-year course, the A-level accounting in 22 days. Wow. And so I had to study a lot for it, but when I was doing the coursework, I didn't do all the problem sets that they had. I just did some of them. But you know, obviously, ideally, you want to do all of the problem sets. The one thing that I did that I think allowed me to finish it much faster is when I was reading the explanations, I tried to really, really understand it. And something that can be helpful when learning something is to try to learn it in such a way that you feel like, okay, I wanna learn this in such a way so that I can explain it to someone else. So when you're learning something, try to think in your mind, if I had to teach this to someone else, how would I explain it? So I found that to be helpful, and I try to really understand, because I didn't have enough time to do all the problems. So I just try to understand it, and I would do 1 or 2 problems and then move on to the next chapter. So that was something that was helpful for me. Another was breaking down, have any of you heard of the concept of SMART goals? SMART goals. Is anyone doing business studies? Yes? Okay, so SMART goals. You've heard of SMART goals in business studies. So one of the ideas in SMART goals is to break down what you're trying to do. If you have a big goal, break it down into small, manageable steps. And so that's something that was helpful for me. I calculated, okay, I have whatever it was, the business studies AS and A-level book was, I'm not sure how many pages, it was like 300 pages or something, and I calculated, okay, I have a month and a half to finish this book, and then I calculated I need to do this many hours in the day, and I need to finish each page in 5 minutes. If I finish each page in 5 minutes, and I do this many pages every day, I know I can do it. And so then, you know, breaking it down into manageable chunks like that allowed me, I finished the A-level course for that one in 1.5 months, and then the A-level course for accounting in 22 days. And business studies was a lot harder because it wasn't as straightforward as math. Like if you guys do math or science, it's really straightforward. Either you get it right or you get it wrong. It's pretty simple. So it's easier to study on your own. Business studies was not really like that. So I didn't get an A for the business studies, but I was able to get an A for the accounting. So so yeah, finishing your coursework, setting goals. If you have a short amount of time to finish a lot of work, just trying to break it down exactly how much you need to do and how fast you need to finish every one page or so, something like that. That can be helpful in finishing it quickly. Of course, if you can take your time, that's always helpful. Something for finishing the coursework. How much time do you all, maybe some of you can tell me, how much time do you spend every day studying and doing homework? Chandra, you want to tell me first? Like an hour every day? Okay, so somebody else, how much time do you spend?
2 hours.
2 hours a day? 3 hours? Okay, that's good. That's good. So that's actually how much time I scheduled for myself. I try to schedule 3 hours a day for studying outside of school. I didn't always do it. You know, I would procrastinate or like end up talking to friends or something and then not study. But I would schedule 3 hours. And that's something that the Leader Manji encouraged us to do, was to try to schedule 3 hours for studying every day. So those things help me finish the coursework. So once you finish the coursework, I would actually encourage you before you start the coursework to have a copy of the syllabus. Do you provide that to students? Is that something that you do? Okay, so that's something that I had when I started the coursework, is I would have a copy of the syllabus, and that's something Gopinath really encouraged me to do, especially for the sciences. English is maybe not as useful, I found, but definitely for the sciences, they will tell you everything that you need to know for your exam. And so when I was doing the coursework, I would make notes. So this is the second step in the study skills for your exams, is making notes. And so the way we would make notes is we would look at the syllabus, and it would tell you for each chapter exactly what you need to know. And so that's what we would focus on, because sometimes the textbooks were maybe a little bit older than the syllabus, and they had some content in there which was nice, and we would study it. We would finish the whole textbook, but sometimes some of the things we didn't really need to know for the exams. It would have extra stuff, or sometimes the textbook didn't have things that we actually needed to know. So then we had to find another textbook and look it up. So that's something that's useful to have. When you have each chapter, they'll tell you exactly what you need to know, and then we would make notes on it. So say, for example, you should be able to define Newton's 3 laws. That might be something in physics that you would have. And so then you just write it exactly what you need to know. You write it out. Copy it down into your notes. And then by the end of the course, like when I finished my physics, for example, I had about 50 pages of notes. So it was quite a lot, but by the end of it, I did not need my textbook anymore. I only needed my notes. And so that was all I needed to study from. And so because I wrote it down, you know, there's a saying, when you write, you remember. So because I wrote it down, that really helped me with remembering the material. But once I finished the book, I did not study. So this is something that Gopinath and Abhay would always say, is like, oh, we never studied for the exam. Now, I needed to find what they meant by study. It's not that they didn't do anything before the exams, but they didn't have like the passive form of studying where you just sit down with the textbook and try to read it, or like go through notes or things like that. We never really did that. So when I finished the coursework and when I finished my notes, we would go straight into exam papers. And so I found it a lot more interesting, a lot less boring. I would not feel like I'm falling asleep while doing it. So that was something helpful. So we went, when we finished the notes, go straight into exam papers, and then you'll make mistakes. When you're doing the exam papers, you're going to make mistakes. Like the first exam paper we did, maybe we only, were able to get 60% in it or something, because we didn't study at all. But then we would find all the things that we didn't know in the course, and then we would study. So that's, here I put active study, do the exam papers, and then course correction. So the concept of course correction is like if you're navigating in a ship and you're going off course, you correct course. So I would have an extra set of notes for any mistakes that I would make. So if there was some concept, like I didn't understand the principles of thermodynamics in physics, I would make a note, learn this. So I made a mistake, and then I would try to learn it and make sure that I didn't make the same mistake again. So then it's actually, and there are principles in psychology. When you make a mistake and then you try to learn it, you're going to learn that concept much better than if you try to learn it without making a mistake. So you're going to learn much faster. You're going to memorize things much more if you try to learn it after you've made the mistake. So that's something that I would do, and then we would go through several exam papers. Okay, so we would go through several exam papers. I found for myself, going through about 7 years of work, 7 years of exam papers was useful. So at the time I was doing it, for physics, there were 3 sets of exam papers. Is it still the same, IGCSE?
There's much more.
There are more than that now? So for IGCSE physics, how many exam papers do you have? Like say for 1 year. I know there was like alternative to practical, then there were 2 other papers.
Oh, yeah, there are 3.
Three, yeah. So for example, for 1 year there would be 3 papers. So I would try to do that, all 3, and then I would do different years. So I would do like maybe 7 to 10, well not necessarily years because you have exams twice a year. But then you have May, June, and then I think October, November, right?
Yes.
Still the same. So I would try to do 7 to 10, and I found that like once I finished 7 exam papers, at that point I would have gone through almost all the mistakes that I would make. And the advantage of doing that, like just trying to learn from your mistakes, is that you don't have to study things that you already know. Because if you just try to go through, all the notes that you've made and things like that, there will be a lot of stuff that you already know. And so then if you're just trying to go through it, then you kind of waste time with that. So I found by the end of it, I finished maybe 7 years of exam papers. I knew most of the material. And at that point, when I first did the exam papers, I would be getting maybe 60% or so. But then by the end of it, you'd be getting like 90 to 100%. In your exam papers, and if you're starting to get 100% in your exam papers, you're probably going to do pretty well. and it feels really good when you go into the exam room and you're like, okay, I've been doing really well in my past exam papers, and I got this. You're kind of excited to go in the exam room. Another thing that I would encourage you, this was kind of when I was in Gurukul. I don't know if any of you have been to Gurukul or not, but it was always a thing, like sleeping little was considered, it was like a badge of honor, like how little you sleep, like, oh, I only slept 6 hours, things like that. I would encourage you to do the opposite, especially when you're studying for exams. And I read a study, they were talking about sprinters. So people, before an athletic event, they had some people sleep like 6 hours, some people sleep 8, and some people sleep as much as they could, maybe on average 10 hours. And they found that the sprinters who slept 10 hours before their races did a lot better. They had much better reaction time. Now they did the same study with people before a math exam. And they found that people that studied, that slept 10 hours before a math exam would do a lot better. And I found this true for myself. Especially when I was studying for exams, if I would sleep as much as I needed, and I would wake up not feeling tired, then I would do way better. And I know there was like one physics exam where I went in and I didn't sleep enough, and I really regretted it. Like, I did a lot worse. So sleeping a lot, especially when you're studying for your exams, is going to be really helpful. So that's another thing that I would encourage you to do. Okay, based on these three steps for preparing for your exam: coursework, syllabus, and exam papers. Does anybody have any questions so far on what I said? Any questions?
Make the time within your everyday life to study for exams.
What if you can't make the time? Do you have a schedule, like a written out schedule, your daily schedule?
But you have a more or less schedule, like not written out, but you have it here, and you just don't have the time to do as much studying as you'd like, and sometimes it goes into your sleeping time.
Right. That is tricky. I mean, it really depends what you're doing. Like when I was doing my high school, some kids chant 16 rounds. I don't know about you, but I was not able to do that. And I was, on average, I would chant like 8 rounds a day when I was in school, high school, and then when I was studying for my exams, it would go down. So that's how I made time, and I also had a written schedule. How many of you, I want to see a show of hands, how many of you have a written schedule for your day? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's good. So having a written schedule is really going to help with that. Like calculating, that's something that I was doing with Gopinath at the time when I was in Gurukul. I was like, I just don't have time to study. And he's like, okay, let's calculate like how many hours you have in the day outside of sleep and where your time is going. So that can be helpful, and we did it, and I really didn't have time. I did not have time to study with a Gurukul schedule, which is one of the reasons why I didn't stay in Gurukul. I went home and I had more time afterwards. But I talked to the Gurukul teachers, and then I just saw what things I could cut out of my life. So having a schedule. When I was in high school, I didn't have social media. So that, I think, saved me a lot of time. And like now I use social media and I notice I get distracted so much. So I don't know how many of you, does anybody here have trouble with getting distracted by social media?
Come on, everybody, raise your hands.
Yeah. A lot of, it's really distracting. For me, it's YouTube. I get distracted by YouTube. If I go on Instagram or Facebook, you know, those things. And I use it for like connecting with students, for work, things like that. But still, there's always like stuff that pops up, and they figure out, they have an algorithm to figure out what you're interested in. And they're just going to show you all the stuff that you're interested in. So it's like, it's way more addictive than television. So has anybody had success in limiting or like figuring out ways to manage not getting distracted by social media? I see your hand going up. So what do you do to avoid getting distracted by social media?
I have a mode in the phone, like focus mode, and he's walking around for a few hours. Or I would just tell myself if I don't study, then I fail. Basically using my fear to do it.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's
Or
good.
just to impress the teachers that I saw in the
Right. Right, yeah. Yeah, that's good. Sometimes having the fear of exams, it does, somehow fear does seem to motivate one more. So sometimes, and there's studies on this as well, like fear of loss is a lot more motivating to humans than desire for gain. So that's something like, you know, they have, has anyone here been to Australia before? You've been to Australia. Okay. So in Australia, if you look on cigarette packets, they have really gruesome pictures of what happens to you if you smoke cigarettes. So like that fear of disease is a good motivator. So fear of exams is a good motivator. Anybody else from the boys' side, what have you done that helped you maybe avoid getting distracted by social media?
Now, social media make a personal profile on each person. I have installed a specific program to remove that personal profile entirely.
Oh wow. What is that? What is the program?
It's called Warden. You have to have root if you have that profile.
You have to have what?
Root. It's a specific kind of permission.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's difficult to install.
That's cool. Warden. Okay. So that's useful. Something that I've done that was helpful for me was there's an app called Stay Free, and it allows me to like set the amount of time that I'm gonna use an app, and then like if I exceed whatever it is, say 10 minutes a day on YouTube or something like that, if there's a time I need to focus, maybe I'll set it to like 5 minutes a day, and then it will block the app, and I can't open it. And every time I try to open it, it will block it again and close the app. And then you have to go through a whole bunch of steps to unlock it. So it kind of like it stops you from being impulsive. And that's, I don't know if anyone of you has noticed, but sometimes you open your phone and impulsively go to like whatever your preferred social media site is, but you'll instinctively just open it. And I've noticed this for myself. So like removing the app from my homepage was helpful. So these are all obstacles I didn't have when I was doing high school. I didn't have a smartphone until I was like, I think 22. So I think that helped me study. But you guys, I mean, you'll have to have a higher level of self-control as the previous generations. So any other questions on what I've discussed so far? Coursework, making notes and using the syllabus. Yes, Anji?
I just wanted to say that it's very clever what you've done because you've extrapolated the points that you needed, what are really being asked on the exams from all the stuff. But some years ago, I went to an education conference I was invited to that in Germany, and we learned at that point that the German government had done this amazing gone through everything that you could learn from kindergarten to grade 12 or whenever you were finished, and realized that all of it could be learned in 2 years.
Wow.
All the rest in all the books is just bunk. Bunk means like just stuff that they use to fill it up to sell more books, make bigger books and that sort of thing. So that's basically what you did. You pulled out the real knowledge that you needed and then worked the exams on. That's very smart and very excellent. Just get through the bump and pick out what you really need. Excellent.
So, anybody else have any questions on what I discussed so far? Any questions? Any questions? You have a question.
You were saying that you didn't study, as in you took past papers from Cambridge before and you wrote on those. We do that with business, but did you not study for those in the sense that, did you look at your book when you completed those past papers, or did you have another sort of strategy for it?
I did use the book. So like when I say I didn't study it, I mean, and what we meant is that we didn't passively study. So we would do the exam papers, find out what we didn't know, and then like do the problems again using the book, and then making a note of like, okay, I didn't know this concept in business. I didn't know whatever it was, you know, some specific concept in the business studies. I didn't know, you know, how to like calculate a specific formula, whatever it is, like net profit or something like that. Make a note on that, and then you would study it. But after you did the exam paper, you would study that concept. I did go through the syllabus and I did go through my notes at the end after I did maybe 5 exam papers, and I started to do really well, and I feel like I got most of the concepts. I would go through the syllabus, and sometimes there would be one area where I'm like, wait a second, I never went through that, and I don't know that concept. And then I would kind of study it, then I would do a more like, you could say passive approach, but I would first focus on just like going through a bunch of exam papers. Because usually after you've done like 5 to 7 exam papers, you've gone through almost all the material that you need to go through. And it's a lot more fun than just sitting there with your books and trying to read. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
How do you study efficiently?
How do you study efficiently? Oh, okay. Did you miss some of what I was talking about? Okay, yeah, there was I am actually recording it, so if you want to listen to the recording afterwards, but I could upload it on YouTube and send it to Madji, and she can share, or send it to Drew, so that's, I did talk a lot about that, studying efficiently. I mean, basically, you know, finishing your coursework, setting like SMART goals for the amount of work that you need to do in a given amount of time, and then breaking it down into small chunks. Making notes based on the syllabus. So you could view your syllabus as a giant question. So the syllabus is like telling you what you need to know, but you write the answers to the question of the syllabus. You could think of it like that. So that was something that was helpful, like when approaching a subject that I'm learning, or a chapter, say in physics, I read the syllabus first and figure out exactly what I need to know in the chapter, and then I read that chapter keeping that stuff in mind, like, okay, I need to know, you know, these concepts in this chapter. So as I'm reading it, I'm kind of like looking for those specific things, and when I do find it, I would make a note on it. So like Newton's 3 laws, or like how to calculate acceleration, something like that. So then once I read it, then I'm going to make a note exactly what I need to know. I might copy down like a passage from the book or something like that. So and then studying efficiently, I was talking about exam papers, and then course correction. So like you finish your exam paper, and then you figure out you didn't know a certain area, then you just study that. And then that way, after you've gone through a few exam papers, you've done most of the mistakes that you're going to make, and you've corrected it and made sure that you won't make the same mistake again. So that's the main thing. That was the main thing on how we studied. We focused most of our attention on that. It's like making mistakes, but then memorizing or studying whatever it is so we don't make the same mistake twice. That was the whole idea. And then it's much more efficient that way. By the end of it, you almost, like if you do this method, say with physics, you can pretty much memorize the entire textbook. After you've done, I think I did 7 or 8 exam papers at the time, and I had most of the material memorized. So it's actually a really, really efficient way to study. Okay, there's a last section number 5 that I wanted to discuss, but are there any other questions? Yes.
Well, when I was doing my IGCSE, I had subjects that I didn't like. So how can students learn?
You had what?
I had some subjects that I didn't like to study.
Oh, you did not like to study.
So how can students study something that they don't like to study?
That's pretty hard. Yeah, it's hard to like. I really did not like English until I had you know, and it took me a while, and I had some bad teachers. I loved English until 4th grade, and then I had a teacher that, and I'm not mentioning any names, but I had someone in, I think it was 3rd grade or 4th grade, and she was like super strict and a little mean, and it made me hate English, and I used to love it before. And it took me years, and I used to get writer's block whenever I would try to write an essay. Like, it would take me forever to write essays. And then afterwards, I had some good teachers. Jadara Kumanji. She was actually the first one who like really got me into trying to get 100% on an exam. We had like a 3-hour history exam, and I got 100 on it. I can't. And we studied. My brother and I studied for like so long for that exam, but she inspired me, and we used to watch a lot of movies. So, yeah, if you don't have a good teacher, trying to study something that you don't like is going to be hard. I would say trying to learn to like it is you know, whatever it is, like getting into it. And maybe it's like going on YouTube and like listening to some people that are like really into a specific subject, whether it's science or something, if it's science that you don't like. I didn't do as well on my English exams, generally, and partly because it was harder for me to study on my own for those exams. But yeah, also it wasn't one of my favorite subjects. Whereas all my other subjects I did pretty well. English, I think IGCSE I got an A, but then yeah, English literature was harder. I only got a B on that. So, but for my other subjects I got like much better. So yeah, figuring out ways to like something is gonna help you. You know, seeing it like, you know, maybe it's a puzzle or seeing something in it. I noticed that with the people that did really well in their English exams, they really like got into writing and like trying to be a writer. They try to get good. So is there a specific subject that you don't like?